You see, when you're enslaved, when you're working for Pharaoh, your value is based upon what you can produce. How many bricks I can make in a day, how many monuments I can build in a lifetime, how much I can create or produce for my master, that is my value. And so, enter the Exodus, and the Israelites are in the desert, and God says, no, this day, this is not about what you can make. This day is not about what you can do. This Sabbath day, this Sabbath rest, this rest that I did on the seventh day of creation, the rest that I'm asking you to enjoy with me, this rest is not about what you can do. It's about being loved for who you are. Your value is not based upon what you can make with your own hands. Your value as a person is not based upon what you can do or what someone else says you can or can't do. That is not your value. Your value is the fact that today, this day, we are loved by God. And the writer of Hebrews is telling us that this is significant in our understanding of this promised rest to come. And if we go deeper, we understand that the Sabbath had an eerie, amazing habit of bleeding throughout the week. It wasn't just a seventh-day celebration, and this is what? If on the seventh day, for a 24-hour period, from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday, I can do no work, that means I have to do my work for Friday on Thursday. And that means I have to do my work for Thursday on Wednesday, and so on and so forth. Let me give you an example of that. If I cannot create a fire on Friday night and I want a fire for the Sabbath, that means I have to make it Friday afternoon before the sun goes down. Which means I have to go collect the wood Friday morning. Which means I have to do whatever I was going to do Friday morning on Thursday evening. Which means I have to do whatever I was going to do Thursday evening earlier and earlier. And if I wanted to light a lamp, I needed to make sure I had enough oil and so that I could get it lit earlier in the evening. So I had to go to the market the day before to make sure that I had enough oil. If I wanted my food to be warm, I had to place it next to my Sabbath lamp so that it would stay warm because it had to be prepared way in advance. So what happened was the Sabbath rest, as Jewish rabbis taught, was an eternal remembrance of the covenant between God and Israel. In Exodus 31, God tells the people of Israel, you will do this Sabbath day, because it will eternally remind you of my covenant with you. And it truly became that. Because on the first day, you were cleaning up from the Sabbath day. On the second day, you were preparing for the seventh day. And on the third, the fourth, the fifth, all the way up to the Sabbath day, your preparations were done. So your mind, for those who truly observed the Sabbath, was all week long on this day that you would celebrate with God. Your minds all week long were dedicated on preparing to encounter God on that Sabbath day. It would bleed throughout the week. Jewish rabbis taught with conviction and consistency that those who observed the Sabbath day correctly and consistently were often able to beat temptation. Well, this is only logical. This only makes sense. If I wake up on Monday and I'm getting ready for Sunday already, I've got no time to entertain sin. If I'm at work and in the back of my mind I'm thinking about what my family and I are going to do for our Sabbath, and my coworker walks in, I've got no time to hear that joke or have that conversation or stare at that girl or fill in the blank. If my mind is day after day on the Sabbath that was coming week after week, and if I was looking forward to that day as it was ordered to be celebrated with joy, if my mind was on that day with God, that one day, it would bleed into every aspect of my life. Now, it's interesting enough, and you may say this is a stretch, but the reality is Christianity didn't stop celebrating the Sabbath until about 300 AD. These first readers most certainly would celebrate the Sabbath, sundown Friday to sundown Saturday, and the Christian resurrection day on Sunday. Most certainly the first readers of this would be very familiar with the Sabbath traditions. And the writer of the Hebrews has now labeled our redemption with rest and a promise for an eternal rest. And he said it's like your Sabbath. This promise for an eternal rest is like my Sabbath. Meaning, brothers and sisters, on that day, this promised redemption, this promised rest, is not about what I did or what I can do. It's not about what I can produce for God. It's not about what I can create for God. My place in heaven has nothing to do with what I can do with my own hands, and everything to do with God loving me despite that. My rest, my place in heaven, has nothing to do with me trying to earn a spot in eternity. No, it has everything to do with me being given a spot in eternity. You see, brothers and sisters, the writer of Hebrews has established the fact that this Sabbath rest should be like this eternal promise of rest, and that it should bleed into our lives today. Do you understand? This rest that we are looking for, this heaven, this thing, this eternal presence with God, this being with our Maker, this eternal rest should impact our lives today. It should impact our lives today. Where we're going for eternity should have a bearing where I choose to be. Where I want to end up at the end of my life should impact where I choose to go tomorrow. It should bleed. It should bleed. The writer of Hebrews says, our redemption and our rest are the same. And this is what he means. Jesus says, come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Amen. Jesus doesn't say, come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and build me a monument and a garden and a palace, and then I'll let you take it off. Jesus doesn't say, come to me who are weary and heavy laden, and be burdened by your past mistakes the rest of your life. Jesus doesn't say, I will redeem you and make you feel guilty in the same breath. Jesus doesn't say, I will redeem you from your sins and make you suffer for them. Jesus says, I suffered for you. Come to me who are weary and heavy laden. The writer of Hebrews says this promise of rest still stands. What's missing? Our understanding of Sabbath has become incredibly skewed in Midwestern America. My grandfather was Canadian, born and raised, loved hockey. And he had some very conservative views on the Sabbath day. We couldn't buy a loaf of bread. We couldn't go anywhere other than church. It wasn't about anything. And as a kid, I'm like, Grandpa, I want to go to the movies. I'm bored. I want to go play skee ball. I want to do something. Can I go for a jog? Can I do something? And, he'd look at me, 9 years old, and he'd say, son, it's not about that. It's not about what you want to do. It's about what you get to do. And what you get to do is rest. What you get to do is rest. A couple of points of application in closing this morning.